Hey, folks. So, something a little different this time. Um, it's been bugging me for since this became a big deal in the news. The news. Um, this Petito case, and I know, everybody's talking this, that, and the other thing on it. What's bugging me is they're trying to convict this kid, and let me say first, I don't know what happened. Nobody does. But they're trying to convict this kid in the media and in public opinion. Uh, I mean, you tell me how in this case are you going to be able to seat a jury? I mean, you know, almost everybody in the whole country's heard about this. So, um, and all of the coverage has been completely negative towards him. So, you know, I'm a firm believer in innocent until proven guilty for anybody, for anybody. And I mean, you got if they had video of the kid doing it, okay, that's one thing. They don't even have enough to make him a suspect in the murder. Now, they just came out with the news that they have issued an arrest warrant for him, a federal arrest warrant. It's not for the murder. It's for activities after her death. In other words, the going to Florida and so on. And it's based on. They didn't say on the new on the. I've been watching a local news channel there, and that's where I heard it. But um, they're in Florida, and they had like they try to pretend like they're being even on that one they're trying to pretend like they're being objective, but they read what the indictment is for, and then they turn around and start talking about it as if he's being arrested for her murder. Okay, well, here's a clue, folks. There is no such thing as a murder charge uh, in federal law, unless it's of like the president or if you're in the military. Murder charges are state. Okay, so he's not being indicted for. He hasn't been indicted for that. He's been indicted for some obscure law that I believe they used an obscure federal law, something about I don't remember the exact wording, but the gist of it is uh, act things that you do like that leave like someone in a dangerous situation. Um, and this was a search warrant that was issued before they found the body. So it was how they got the van originally, how they confiscated the van, and then they had a second warrant for a hard drive they found in the van so they could search the hard drive. Now, it's an external hard drive. Chances are it was hers for doing the blog. And um, my guess on the indictment, there's probably two things the feds are doing. Um, they are probably number one trying to like once they when and if they find him alive, um, they will have a way to like keep him from leaving the country, put him under arrest. I'm sure for this charge there's going to be able to be bail. Again, it's not a murder charge. Um, I don't know what the penalties are because, like I said, this is some obscure federal law they dug up. Um, and And even like the warrant they issued or that they served the other day was like based on text messages and the girl's mother's feelings about the text messages. Seemed pretty thin to me, but you know, you know, I want the truth to come out. And like I said, I don't know what happened, what didn't happen. What I object to is uh, they don't have anything on this kid in terms of the murder at this point, unless something comes out of the like let's say they found like even if they found DNA in this case, they've been living in a van together. The DNA means nothing. They were in a relationship. The DNA means nothing. So this is not going to be a case solved by DNA unless unless part of what they took the other day out of the house, the parents' house, happened to be clothes with her blood on it or something like that. Then it would, then it would help. But my guess is if he did it, any clothes he was wearing, unless he's a complete moron, are somewhere between Wyoming and Florida in a dumpster somewhere, or by now in a landfill. So, like I say, I object to the, not giving anybody the benefit of innocent until proven guilty, and there's a reason I believe that, because I believe if it's not okay just because you want it to like come out the right way, and there's a reason why it's not that way, and that's because if we allow that, then it's okay when it happens to you, and it's okay when it happens to that guy and this woman and that kid. So, uh, you know, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about both sides of the coin, kind of playing devil's advocate for both sides. I've got no dog in this hunt, okay? I'm following it purely out of the mystery of it, because I watch like true crime stuff all the time because I'm into like kind of um, I guess solving the puzzle kind of deal. Um, but everything I've seen from the people online, especially the people online, as far as like the YouTube, they're all, you know, he's a piece of shit. I mean, like, okay, let's talk first about if you've seen the video of them when they got pulled over because somebody called in domestic violence dispute. The cops tracked them down, pulled them over. Um, they're talking about they're all looking at for body language about her being abused and all this stuff. Okay, the bottom line is if anybody was going to jail in that incident, it was her. The cop goes up to her and says, "Answer very carefully because the answer to this question is going to determine uh, whether somebody goes to jail." And the question was, "Did you intend to cause him harm or something like that? Did you intend to cause him harm when you slapped it?" Okay, first of all, slapping is iffy to me anyway. That's like saying grabbing somebody's ass is sexual assault. If that's sexual assault, then I've been sexually assaulted many times. It's ridiculous the degree that people go to like expand their involvement in certain things. Okay, but he had marks on his face from her hitting him. He admitted that he pushed her away to keep her from hitting him again. She did not dispute that. She answered the question of the did you intend to cause him harm by slapping him, and she starts crying again and says no, and then she says I can't remember exactly because it's been a couple days since he may have asked her, well then what were you trying to do, but or she may have just continued. It doesn't matter, same effect. She goes, uh, I wanted him to stop telling me to calm down. Well, and my thought is, well, gee, I wonder why he's telling you to calm down if you're that worked up that you feel the need to attack him and physically strike him. So she was the one going to go to jail, not him. All right. So that's the kind of biased coverage I'm talking about with this. Um, She was a mess the whole time she was talking to the cops. Now that, had she been beaten up, okay, that would be understandable, but she wasn't beaten up. And the 911 call comes out, and the person who reported it said that they just saw a guy hitting a girl. Well, define what they mean by hit. Was that when he pushed? Did they see him push her away from him? I mean, I don't know. Is it possible that he hit her? Well, she wasn't marked up. She said nothing about that he hit her. He admitted that to the cops that he pushed her away to keep her from hitting him again. He was fairly calm. I mean, he's a weird guy. I'll tell you that right now. I mean, there's something about his body language. You could say, well, he was nervous because of the cops. Maybe he's not used to that. Maybe he's never been pulled over before. Maybe he did something that he thought he might be in trouble for if they, based on their questioning or something. They were in the middle. The guy's rattled anyway. They were in the middle of fighting. First thing that happens is the cop, they're still in the van. Cop says, well, why are you crying? There's no reason to be crying. She says she's not crying while she's crying. Then she says, then he apologizes for hitting the curb. I guess he hit the curb when he pulled over. She says, yes, I was distracting him. Well, translation for a couple that's not getting along is she was bitching at him. Okay, she was an aggressive female. I don't care if she's cute and tiny and all that stuff. You know what I mean? You got to step back and look at this. I'd be the first person to tell you if I read something off the kid in terms of like, she's hiding something or he's lying his ass off or whatever. Okay? I don't know that any of that's the case here. Everything I saw that she talked about on the body cam is that she was the aggressor. Yet you look at the media, and it's all about they're bringing in body language experts to and doing like little philosophical clips on segments on domestic abuse and all that stuff. Well, he was the one being domestically abused, if anybody was. Okay, first of all, you got two young people who are with the maturity levels of kids today, too young to be getting fucking married, and they're engaged supposedly. All indications were that the relationship was not the greatest. Like, maybe it was at one time, but they had spent from early July until all this stuff, so like almost 2 full months. And about a month and a half in, they're getting pulled over because they're beating on she's beating on him and he's pushing her away, type of thing. Then they've had a couple more witnesses come forward, and the coroner's preliminary report says that she was killed as early as the 26th. Well, that'd be a neat trick, since we now have a witness that came forward that saw them in a restaurant in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, on the 27th. Apparently, he had a verbal confrontation with some of the staff at the restaurant. She was upset, so she's crying again. Very emotional girl. And, I have a niece who's overly emotional, okay? So, it's like hard with people like that to figure out what's a problem, what's not a problem, whatever. As it turns out, if he did this, then it could be a problem. But it also could be a case where they're in a van for like a month and a half, 2 months together, for the most part. And they're not getting along. And first of all, anybody, I don't care who the fuck you are. I could be with my best fucking friend who I've known for 25 fucking years. If we're in a van for 2 fucking months, we'd be lucky to make it a week without fucking starting to, week, maybe 2 weeks before we're getting on each other's nerves. That's human nature. I don't care who the fuck you are. Any two people in that close of proximity for that long is gonna have issues And being young people, they don't necessarily know how to deal with it. I'll give you a quick example. Okay, I was married in my 20s, and one of the things my wife used to do that irritated the piss out of me, and I was probably 25 at the time that this was going on. There were two things, and one was she used to leave the cap off the fucking toothpaste with the toothpaste squirting out of it, which I thought was gross. Because, she had long dark hair, right? So I'd go in there to brush my fucking teeth, and here's one of her hairs in the fucking thing. Granted, I know where it came from, and it's my wife, but still, not tasty to want to put that in your mouth. All right, number one. Number two, um, she used to leave the top open on the. She was big on leaving tops open on stuff, and she used to leave the top open, I don't know what most people do, but I've always left my my shampoo in the shower, sitting on either one of the little shelves or on the corner of a bathtub or whatever, but leaving it in there. Well, she would leave the lid up, and then she'd continue her shower. Well, guess what happens then? Water gets in there, and then you go to pour out shampoo, and the first water floats on the shampoo. You end up with like a handful of fucking water before you get to any shampoo. And at the time, I used to get irritated, and we'd fight about it. Verbally argue about it. Until like about a year later, when I finally figured out the smart thing to do would be to buy my own fucking shampoo that she didn't like using and buy my own fucking toothpaste. And then she could do whatever the fuck she wanted to with hers. So I just bought different brands of stuff that she didn't use. Because we were using her brands of stuff. Well, it comes with maturity and it comes with experience in a relationship. And I still say, I've said many times, had I been married to her, now this is my ex-wife, had I been married to her later in my life, I might have still been married to her. I just didn't know how to deal with the stuff at the time. Well, same thing with this, in my opinion. So, I'm not talking about the murder stuff, the aspect of it. I'm just talking about getting along and dealing with the stuff. Okay, so let's back up. On the 12th is when they got pulled over. He then goes back. They separate them for the night and they go to different hotels. The next day, he flies home to Florida. And he's in Florida through the 23rd. Then he comes back and he flies back. And they're back together again. Okay, so now it's there's a 10-day period there where they're not together. And so she's doing the travel thing, I guess, still. Or I don't know whether she camped. Nobody said. I don't know whether she still camped in the same spot, whether she moved on. I'm sure they were talking on the phone, honey, I love you, I'm sorry, and all that stuff. Otherwise, you wouldn't have flown back. And then within a few more days, which would probably, I'm sure it was great for like the first day or two, and then it turns to shit again, because by the 27th they're in this restaurant, and he's bitching out the staff over whatever. What about? I don't know. Doesn't really matter to me. But like I said, I got no dog in this hunt. Okay, people, and I don't mean to sound cold, and I'm not saying it's not a tragedy at all, but people are killed every day. Last weekend, seven people were killed in Chicago alone over the weekend. Let alone how many dozens of other people were shot and not killed. Okay, people are murdered every second. While I've been talking here, several people have been murdered somewhere in the country. Okay, I don't know these people. I don't. When you look at a younger person, obviously, it is. You're more inclined to say, well, they had the whole life ahead of them, whatever. But the way I look at it, anybody who's murdered I don't differentiate one to the other, you know. I might differentiate to be how deprived the person was. You know, you go back to when I was kid, and we had the Oakland County child murders. Okay, they're killing 12, 13-year-old kids, boys and girls. One from my hometown, and three other ones from neighboring cities. And obviously, that's heinous. In this particular case, I'm guessing the details are if they're saying it's a homicide. Now, here's what's confusing to me about it being dubbed a homicide is that has a very distinct legal uh, definition. If someone doesn't commit suicide, if someone doesn't die of natural causes, if some if it's not accidental, okay, those would be other types of causes. Then it's a homicide. It's an unnatural death. It does not necessarily mean that the person was murdered. And most people don't know that. So I don't know. I'm guessing that they probably mean murder in this case, but still, the media runs off with that. I haven't heard one person mention the fact that that homicide doesn't necessarily mean murder. Um, I mean, it most often does because how many people just die of some kind of you know weird thing that's not necessarily a murder. Could be. I mean, my guess with let's take the 12th, where they had this altercation to get pulled over. Okay, so one feasible explanation of if he did it or is responsible in some way, um, they start fighting again. She starts hitting him again. He pushes her a little too hard. They're in a rocky area. She hits her head on a rock, dead. Breaks her neck, crushes her skull, whatever may be the case. Okay. If he did this, I've even seen people trying to come out that he went home to Florida to plan it and whatever else. Uh, the even the girlfriend who of the girl, Petito's one of Petito's close friends who she hung out with, and if they had a fight or whatever, her house is where she would go to stay for the night to get away from him. She said that she thinks that he loved her, and she knows that she loved him. Okay, that being the case, um, I don't think premeditation comes into the picture. Um, I think this was if he did it again. I think this would be a heat of the moment thing. Uh, I guess you could say accident. I doubt very seriously he intended to harm her, but you know, um, I know people have their limits, and we don't know what she was doing all these days that they were together. Where we know of one incident where she had missed a smacking him. Well, was this a regular thing? Did he get to the point where he thinks he's losing his girlfriend? He already can't sleep. He's already on his emotional last leg, and she hits him one too many times or comes at him one too many times, and he overreacts in a way that causes her death. Very possible. Okay, it's also possible based on other evidence, other witness accounts that we've that have been out there that I mean, first of all, the coroner's report, that's based on the science of what they can prove scientifically. You know, they do take into account what they know based on, like, if they knew for a fact ahead of time that she was seen alive on the 27th, then they wouldn't have said the 26th. Okay, they didn't have that at that point. Um, and that was just the preliminary report. So when the final report comes out, my guess is they'll change that. But here's when I think the girl died. I think the girl died on the night of the 28th or on the 29th. And I'll tell you why. And this is, again, this particular thing is based on uh, whoever did it, whether it was him or somebody else. Okay, and I'll get into the somebody else thing and the opposite side of the coin, devil's advocate, in a minute. But a witness in the campground, other than the one who took the video of the van to begin with, had seen them. She saw them pulling into the. It's a younger girl. Saw them pulling into the. She said that she saw him pulling into the spot that the van was shot. Was located at on the video that shows the van in the park, and I believe she said she saw that on the 27th. And she said that the car was still there through the 29th. Okay, he got home on the 1st. It's without any stops, gas, food, sleep, it's a 41-hour drive from where they were at to his parents' house. And that's if you don't hit traffic, don't hit construction, don't hit any of that shit. So you're talking about probably with sleep and gas stops, you're probably talking about he had to leave sometime probably late on the 29th or early on the 30th in order to get home on the 1st. So I'm figuring at minimum, like you got to figure the guy slept a couple different times on that span, and then you've got probably at least 15, 20 minutes per rest stop. By the time you pick up a couple snacks, you put the gas in, take a piss, whatever, it's going to be 15, 20 minutes each time he stops. It was well over 2,000 some miles, so you're talking about many, multiple stops to get gas and so on. And now it's possible they had food in the truck. When I travel, I always have a cooler with stuff in it. So I don't have to stop for food and drinks. I just have to stop, take a piss, and get gas. But so, okay, that's one reason for the 29th. The other reason is that I think she was killed the 28th, night of the 28th or sometime on the 29th. What are the chances the girl was killed, say, on the 27th, all right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, he did it and she was killed on the 27th. So he hung out for 2 days? He's that cool a cucumber that he's going to just hang out for 2 days? No, he's going to panic and get away from the scene as quick as he can. I found out yesterday from watching. Somebody had a video clip of a local news person who had a chopper. They had a chopper. Her station had a chopper in the air the day they found the body, and they were almost out of gas. They had about 15 minutes before they had to head back to refuel. And they saw the body. It was under a little treed section, and pretty much where the tent was, that the yellow tent that people saw that the FBI had out there. So she wasn't buried. So it wasn't like he had to take several hours, dig a hole, bury the girl. You know, if he's going that far, then he's gonna like do the Indian thing with the fucking branch and try to cover his footprints and so on. There's none of there. There was none of that. If it happened once he realized she was dead, even allowing for him to kind of walk around in a panic or even sit with her for a little while and cry or whatever, he's gone. He's in the van and he's gone. So that's why I say 28th, 29th. Because we know for a fact the thing was there till the 29th. We have a witness report that says so. Okay, so she wasn't killed earlier than that. Um, we also know that she was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming on the 27th, which means they got to the campground where they were parked for the 2 days, a couple of days there. They got to that spot the night of the 27th after this thing. Okay, then there's another thing. Now let's go with the devil's advocate about what if he didn't do it. Okay, so um, there's a report of him being picked up. If they're correct, they think it was him. Okay, I saw some other report by somebody that had a trail cam somewhere else in in Florida that they said looked an awful lot like him. Well, I saw the picture. At a glance, it probably did, but it didn't look like him to me. Like when you looked at the rest of the features, it was basically a bald guy with a backpack walking through some woods that got caught on a trail cam. You know, I doubt very seriously he went up to northern Florida to go hiking. You know, all right. Before I move into the devil's advocate thing, let me cover one more thing about him if he did it. Okay, because I just that statement there just made me think of it. Um, okay, so fast forward to when he's back in Florida at his parents' home, and he goes and he supposedly on last Tuesday, not this past Tuesday, a week ago Tuesday, he on the 14th of September, he he supposedly told his parents. And I say supposedly because I wouldn't uh, put it past the parents to be, you know, covering for the kid. You know, I'm not saying they are. I'm just saying wouldn't be the first time. So, um, so he takes the mother's Mustang and he goes over to this reserve where they've been searching for the last 5 days, and supposedly goes hiking. Takes a backpack with him. He's going hiking. All right. So if first of all, I'll tell you right now, if the kid's in there, he's dead. He killed himself. If he's in there, that's the only way he's in there. If he actually did it, grief stricken, couldn't live with himself, after 2 weeks of it fucking with his head, and then the cops involved, the feds involved, the media coverage, the friends shunning him, I'm sure, and so on and so on and so on. You know, I mean, the murder wasn't in Florida. He's not going to get the Florida death penalty. I don't know if they have a death penalty in Wyoming, but and on top of that, I think I doubt that it's premeditated. So I don't think they could get the death penalty anyway. Um, but you know, he's possibly looking at the rest of his life in prison. I mean, his life as he thought it was like 2 months ago was over, one way or the other. Guilty or not guilty, because there's always going to be people that believe he did it, even if somebody came out and they caught somebody else. uh, you know, unless the media did the upstanding thing and had him on to like, speak his mind after it was proven he didn't do it, um, where he got the same level of exposure that he's gotten the other way. There's always going to be people that are going to be convinced he did it, one way or the other. So back to the car thing. Okay, so he goes to the car in the reserve. Now, if I was going to want to get away, if I was him, I'd either arrange for someone to pick me up, or even better, nobody knows what I'm doing. And I go from there to a bus stop and get on a local bus, go up to the bus station, buy a bus ticket, and I'm gone. Okay. Well, you say, well, Bob, his face has been all over the news. How could that be? How could he get away with that? What have we been doing for the last year and a half? Pair of sunglasses, a cap, and a COVID mask. And there's not a fucking person would recognize him. On top of that, he's been back for 2 weeks. Nobody's seen him in the public, so for all we know, he's also grown a beard. There's nothing he can do about his hair because he's prematurely bald. Kid's only 23 years old and he's bald. So it's not like he can change his hair color or anything like that. I mean, the most he could do is let the hair grow out. He's got a pretty distinctive set of features on his face, but you throw some sunglasses and a mask on him and a cap, and you're looking at, what are you gonna identify? The tip of his nose and his forehead? He could be anywhere, and most likely is if he did it and was not didn't kill himself. Okay. I mean, if he was smart, he would have kept his parents out of it. He already would have got them involved by going home if he did it. Okay, so now let's go back to the other if he didn't do it. So, I don't remember the date on this, but there's someone else that swears that they picked him up hitchhiking not far from that camp place, about 10 miles away, and he said he'd been camping and hiking there for a couple of days, and his fiance was back working on their vlog, and that's where he was headed back to. Okay, so let's say that he goes back there and finds out something horrible's happened to his girlfriend. Might even have found the body. Anybody would know with all the real crime shows and all the cop stuff and whatever else on the television these days that he's going to be the suspect number one. So now she's dead. Yes, he's gonna. Well, I've been around people that had people unexpectedly die before, and you don't necessarily. Not everybody just becomes a basket case immediately. There's a certain mechanism that seems to kick in that it doesn't really set in right away necessarily. There's a disbelief factor. There's you go to bed the next night and wake up, and for a little bit, when you first wake up, you forget that it happened, or what's supposed to be real, and then the sinking feeling comes in. But it still takes days, and I'm not going to get into who I know this from in my personal life, but I've seen it. So it's very, very possible that could be the case. Call it kind of you're in shock or whatever. So So he gets back, he finds out. So what are you going to do? I'd want to get the fuck out of there then too. I mean, he's not going to, the fact that she wasn't buried tells you it wasn't premeditated. The fact that she wasn't buried and wasn't tried to be covered up in terms of, I mean, the body's just laying there. Now, do we know whether the body was taken over there? But why would you drag a body over to some trees? It wasn't back in the trees. If you're going to drag a body over somewhere, you're going to drag a body over somewhere like uh, to hide them, not to just put them under a nice tree, so kind of thing. Um, I did notice that the area that whole area is covered with big rocks. Um, now if they found out in the final report, if they find out like she was strangled to death, which they can tell by bones being broken in the neck. I believe it's the hyoid bone, cartilage, things like that. They can tell. Like the way the broken blood vessels and so on. I mean, that's how you'd end up with like fingerprints, or if a ligature was used, you'd see a line, things like that. Um, because rigor mortis sets in immediately upon death, starts setting in. So, I mean, it takes a while for the full effect of it to happen, but it starts, and decomposition starts immediately after death. Um, my guess is that she wasn't overly decomposed because I think that they were initially able to, when they just found the body and hadn't done the autopsy yet, she had those very distinct tattoos. So my guess is that uh, they saw those. Probably they saw the hair. Uh, might even have been able to, you don't know what happened with animals. That was a very wilderness type of area, so we don't know. But so what does he do? He gets back, he finds out something happened to her, and he panics. He knows he's going to be looked at like he did it, especially since he just got pulled over like a couple weeks before for this domestic dispute thing. So he bolts and he goes back to Florida. Well, that's, you know, not like they're going to not look for him in Florida. So if you're going to go somewhere, I mean, you got to ditch the van. But it just seems to me that you would drop, you know, you could ditch the van anywhere. Even if you drove it all the way back to the parents' house, uh, you know, you park it and you start planning how to get the fuck out of Dodge if you did it. He's just kind of hanging out for a couple of weeks. And it wasn't until 3 days before he disappeared that they reported her missing. So, I mean, now there's a thing that right when he got back, like I guess that same day they went camping for a couple of days for the weekend. Him and his parents. So, you know, it just doesn't strike me as, for all the problems that he's had, it could even be that he got back to the van, she's nowhere to be found, and who knows whether they had a fight before he left, and he just assumes that she flew back to her parents and left him. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios. I mean, if you're a logical person, you know, and you're sitting there in hindsight and you're going, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody do that? You don't know what anybody would do unless you've been in the situation. I've seen some crazy shit that people do, not in this kind of situation, because I've never been involved in this kind of situation, but you don't know what somebody's going to do. People do crazy, seemingly illogical things when in stressful situations. The plain and simple fact is most people are not good with stressful situations, let alone a 23-year-old kid who, you know, the way that kids are these days, the younger people are these days, they're so fucked up from the way that parents raise them these days that it's, it's not out of the realm of possibility that someone's not equipped to deal with a reality-based situation is what I'm getting at. So it'll be interesting to see what the actual final autopsy says they found. Um, if they found a bullet hole, okay, well they should be able to track down how he got a gun. You can't just walk it. Contrary to popular belief, uh, I don't know of a state where you can just walk in with an out-of-state license and buy a fucking gun in that state. I mean, you might be able to do that in Texas. I don't know. But I think most places you have to be a resident of Texas or a resident of Wyoming or wherever. You can't just go, you know, buy a gun with a driver's license from somewhere else. Um, so, you know, did his father have a gun? Did he bring the gun back with him? Highly unlikely. He flew back. Um, did they have a gun with them all along? Whatever the case is, there should be some trail that they could find that particular weapon or if the weapon's missing. Okay? Because I also saw some people speculating because there were some red paint marks on some trees in the crime scene area, and one of them had been painted over a little hole kind of thing uh, that could be about the size of maybe what a bullet would make, but it didn't look like a bullet hole to me. So, first of all, it wasn't fresh enough on the inside if it was a bullet hole. Second of all, with the tree, you'd have some splintering, some blowback. It wouldn't be a perfect circle. Uh, a bullet entering a body, the entrance wound is going to be a perfect circle, a perfect little circle. The entering like a tree that the 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 part of the wood that's getting displaced has to go somewhere, and it's got a natural tendency to give way on an edge or something like that. You're not just going to have a necessarily a clean entrance. So I don't know what that was. I guess we'll find out. But the way people are going, oh, what was there, a shootout? Or, oh my God. And then they've been saying for days that he's being hunted. It wasn't until a couple hours ago the federal arrest warrant was out. He could have gone to an airport, got on an airplane, took a plane to Paris, France, if he wanted to legally, and he would not be considered a fugitive because he wasn't wanted for anything. Now, if he did it, it's a different story. Um, because number one, he's been reported missing, and my understanding is Interpol has been notified. Uh, kind of like an APB type of deal. Um, and that was before the warrant's out. Now the warrant's out, so he's wanted on a federal warrant. Now watch. Within the next couple of days, he'll be put on the 10 most wanted list. So, even though it's not for a murder, it's for this other thing. The other aspect to that, charging him with that, is that they can try to leverage it. Like if they think it's a psychological game. Basically, they play. One aspect is they know where he's at and they can arrest him. The other aspect is they can fuck with his head and, get him thinking, well, it's only a matter of time and try to get him to confess. And like I said, I don't know whether he did it, whether he didn't do it. I can tell you that my personal opinion is, like everybody else, is that looks kind of weird that he just drove back home. Uh, the accounts that we got from some people that were closer to them was that he was kind of maybe controlling or insecure in terms of the one friend of hers, the close friend, said that um, the two of them were supposed to go. The two girls were supposed to go line dancing for ladies' night one night, and it caused a fight between him and Petito because he didn't want her to go. Well, you know, I don't know how it is these days. I know back in the old days, I don't I don't think too many boyfriends would be liking it too much if their girlfriend went out on ladies' night. Tends to be like a single person's thing, not a taken person's thing. Uh, but in any case, this kid's too young to be secure enough in himself that he's not going to worry about that. Um, it's just something that either you have or you don't, and even for those who do, probably comes later in time, or they didn't care about the person to begin with. So yeah, sure, go ahead. You know, because then that in their mind that gives them license to go do what they want, or they can, good, you go out with them, and then I can go play around over here, type of thing. He wasn't that type. This chick was his whole life. I don't think he even wanted to be doing the van thing. He was doing it for her. I mean, he was into hiking and stuff, but in terms of like when they got pulled over by the cops, it was indicated that he didn't support her in the. He didn't think that she was going to go anywhere with this vlog thing she was trying to do. So, um, I mean, I'm not getting involved in all that shit. You hear, oh well, I saw somebody. Well, that's what a boyfriend should support someone in anything. Should support their girlfriend in anything. No, no. If I'm with somebody and they want to do something stupid, I'm not supporting her in that. Now, if it was a vlog thing, fine. But if it means I got to travel my ass all over the country, no. And if you're going to go without me, then we're done. You know what I mean? Um, that's just me. You know? I mean, I wouldn't want to be, I need my alone time. I would not want to be, and that's in a house. I would not want to be stuck for weeks on end with anybody in that close proximity without any time to myself. So all I'm saying is the kid should be given the benefit of the benefit of his right to be considered innocent until proven guilty, because otherwise it becomes okay for any of us not to be innocent until proven guilty. And on top of that, I think they're the media and them. Number one, uh, you got a pretty white girl. It's on the they're not covering it 24/7 like the local station is down there in Florida, but they're camped out outside the parents' house, and it's big news if a car moves. It was big news that the Mustang that got subpoena or they had a warrant for the other day and towed away, that got driven back today, and then the parents drove to Orlando. Well, my understanding is they have relatives in Orlando area, so maybe they're not that far from there. So maybe They went to see some relatives to get away from the fucking circus that's across the street from their house, and has been for days. Is it possible that he's up there and they went up to like give him some money? Yeah, but that'd be pretty fucking stupid because now you're there's a lot of things you can do as a parent and not be legally at risk. Aiding and abetting, uh, reporting someone missing to the FBI when you know they're not missing, that would be a crime. You know, even just lying to a Fed is a crime. Filing a false police report is a crime. I believe the parents actually believed he's missing. I believe the parents actually believed he went to this reserve. I also, from day one, have believed he didn't go to the reserve. Or if he did, it was to kill himself. And the reason I don't think he even went there, other than to drop the car off, uh, at this point, is because they haven't found a fucking trace. As much media coverage of this thing, and you know, as much as the cops are talking, they would have said they found some indications. They wouldn't have got into details, but they would at least said that they found some indications that he's been there. Nothing. To the point where they got divers coming into watered areas. You know, it's a swampy area. It's Florida's at basically a couple inches above sea level. So there's many parts of Florida that are below sea level, which means that when you get all the rain that you get this time of year in Florida every day, there's going to be water that stays. And also the water table is very high. So you got some of it coming up from the bottom. My guess is he's not going to pick in the middle of the water to go fucking shoot himself. And I don't think suicide by alligator is probably a choice either. So I don't think he ever was there. Or if he was there for a short period of time, thought about it while he had some time to be by himself and think, and said, you know what? I got my backpack. I'm out of here. Uh, he was smart enough to turn, if he did it, he's smart enough to turn her phone off. Her phone was off for the entire month of September from the beginning. I think the last time her phone pinged was the 31st or so. So it either died, the battery either died, and he didn't turn it off, or he turned it off. Anybody knows that you're going to be able to track from a cell phone, which begs the other question: if they don't have that much evidence against him, they should be able to, within a day or two of the report of her being missing, the FBI should have had the cell tracking information of their both their cell phones, which would tell you where each of them was. Like they could go back several days from, like, they know he flew back. He flew back to where she was on the 23rd. Okay, so you go from the 23rd. That's your starting point, and you already know that she was still alive then because she talked to her mother on the 25th. Okay, so you go from the 23rd forward. And let's focus on just him to the point where he gets back to his parents' house. Okay, so you go from the 23rd, you track both their phones, and you can tell they're together, they're apart. You could verify the story about the hitchhikers being picked up, because now you can ask them, you can subpoena their cell phone data. So now you can tell whether he actually was in the car or whether they're just making the shit up. Because everybody just assumes these people that get involved in this stuff are telling the truth. There's also fucked up in the head people that just want to be part of the 15 minutes of fame thing and want to be involved. And, you know, you got they picked up some young balding guy who happened to have a fiance who had a vlog. I mean, that could be thousands and thousands and thousands of different people if you just had those factors. Um, so I would want to verify that if I was a federal agent. So it's very easy. Cell phone tracking is used in cases all the time. Um, and again, I follow real crime, stuff. So, like when I say I don't go on websites and check out all kinds of shit like that. I'm not that much into it, but I watch a ton of those real story, real crime type of uh, of shows. So I know for a fact they use that in cold cases. They've used it in cold cases. They've used it in just regular old murder cases that aren't cold. Um, it's not going to give you an exact point of, but it will give you uh, a radius around the cell tower as people travel. As you travel, you're hitting different cell towers, and those cell towers have a certain reach in a diameter. Uh, I mean a radius around that cell tower. So you can tell whether somebody who doesn't belong in a particular city or swears, or their alibi that they're trying to give you is that they were at home in bed asleep, and their home is like completely away from the cell tower where there's no fucking way their phone should be there. You can find it. Well, they can also track when the couple was apart, when they were together, whether he was in the car with the couple that said they gave him a ride, all that stuff. So from the 23rd, 24th on, they could even follow him from Florida when he flew back, and they can see whether she picked him up at the airport, and then what they did then. And then you got these other sightings where they were at the Jackson Hole restaurant, uh, and I mean, you shouldn't have to have a witness come out on, today to say, or yesterday or today, to say that they saw them at this restaurant on the 27th. The feds should already have that information from the cell phones. They should already be canvassing those fucking places, uh, based on what they would see the cell, they'd see where they went into. Cell tracking is very from a standpoint of the uh, not cell, but if the GPSs, if they've got their location finder, how you have to authorize, you can turn off whether they can tell what your location is. Okay. Um, if their location stuff wasn't turned off, the GPS will tell you exactly where they were. So, um, between the cell towers and the GPS information, location information, uh, they should have a clear picture of where they were, whether they were together, um, whether her phone went off and then all of a sudden he starts driving back to Florida, whether her phone was with her wherever when they found her, was her phone with her. In that case, the battery just fucking finally gave out. Um, I, they don't have her phone unless they found it with the body. Because no information about her phone, they didn't find her phone in the van. So if he had her phone's somewhere between Wyoming and Florida, because he would have ditched it. Um, assuming he pulled the battery, dump it in a dumpster or something. Um, there's a lot of we don't know things, but that's my whole point. We don't know. Nobody knows. All this is speculation. And it's based off of the fact that if he wasn't guilty, doing all these things, like just leaving the girlfriend and stuff like that, I mean, for all you, he may have had a fight. They keep saying it's her van because it was registered to her. My understanding is that they were both paying for it, so it was his van too. But they keep saying her van. Um, so, and part of when they got pulled over, he had locked her. He wouldn't let her back in the van. He locked the van and wouldn't let her back in until she calmed down. Well, he was hitting her. I mean, she was hitting him. I mean, so I wouldn't be anxious to go driving and because I don't know whether he was hitting her outside the vehicle while he was driving. For all I know, she hit him again, and that's why he hit the fucking curb, and that's what she meant by she was distracting him. Um, we don't know. Maybe we'll find out someday. But all this crap of he should have come forward. Well, if he already knew she was dead, I think he already knew she was dead one way or the other, whether he did it or didn't do it. I also don't think he told his parents or his family that's the case because I don't even think he told his lawyer that's the case because uh, the lawyer issued the statement of we hope she comes home safe and sound, which a lawyer's not going to do if he's not going to say anything rather than say something false like that. So um, I think is it. I mean, you could take it turn around the other way. Is this guy just totally fucked up in the head? Possible, possible. Um, there's been some other crap like on his posted on his different social media or places where they post shit younger people do. I'm not talking about Facebook. It's on one of these other obscure ones that people do, and I mean they've had people analyzing what songs he was listening to on the drive home because they would listen to stuff off of Spotify and stuff like that. So that's those kind of things I'm talking about. Um, you know, it's like people are trying to read. They have a name for it. It's called confirmation bias. Everybody decided ahead of time the guy had to be guilty, so now they're looking for everything to prove that uh, that he's guilty. And I start seeing, all along I've been seeing these people saying, well, why didn't they arrest him? Why did they wait so long? Why didn't they bring him in? Um, he said he wasn't talking to them, so he had no obligation to go in to make a statement. So beyond that, since they have no warrant, they can't just bring him in. That's why. I mean, the fact people know nothing apparently in this younger generation, and probably even beyond that, about what their rights are and what the law is. So, um, it's essentially it's a modern day lynch mob is what it is that I've been watching for the last several days, and it just finally got to be enough. When I saw them issued the arrest warrant, it's not the arrest warrant that bothered me. It's not that it was for some bullshit law that bothered me necessarily. There's a different aspect that does bother me about that. But it's the fact that the immediate confirmation bias, let's disregard the fact that it's not for murder and start talking about it as if it's for murder. Just like they've been talking about the search for a missing person, which is what they were doing with the search, was a manhunt, according to these people. All they were going to do was pick him up and take him, and they couldn't even force him to go back to his parents' house. They said they were going to take him back to his parents' house. But if they found him and a 23-year-old man, not wanted for any crime, no warrant for his arrest at the time, and the cop in Florida saying, "Well, we're going to take him back to his parents' house." Not if he doesn't want to go. You have no legal right. If they walked up to him, found him, said, "Everybody's worried about you," the most they could do is try to convince him that, you know, call your parents, or they could call the parents and hand them the phone and say, "Talk to your parents so they know you're okay." And he could either refuse or not, or talk to them. And if they said, "We'd like to take you back to them," and he said, "No, I don't want to," there's not a fucking thing they could do about it. Let alone arrest him for nothing. They've got nothing on him for the murder. In this kind of case where you got no witnesses to the actual deed, uh, unless somebody's out there that just doesn't want to get involved, okay? Assuming that's not true, there's no witnesses to what actually had transpired that caused her death. And they were in a, I mean, there were other cars a little bit, maybe a quarter mile up the road, off on the same side as them, but there were trees in between there. There's no line of sight to where they were at, from what I could tell. And they were the only one parking. They were parked in a little bit of a weird spot. It wasn't necessarily, it was a clearing, a little mini clearing, but it wasn't something where a lot of people parked there because it was all grass. And most of the other places where people parked all the time, there was like actual gravelly type of soil there, which is what this place was. It was sand mixed with rock and gravel, I think, naturally. Um, but what's going to happen if somebody parks there all the time? There's going to be no grass growing because it's not, the sun can't get to it because the cars are on it all the time. And that wasn't the case with this spot. So we know someone was in the van on the 27th when the video was shot because somebody on YouTube had done a little investigation, and you can literally see the door partially open and then close as the vehicle gets up. That I believe. So someone was in the van on the 27th. Um, my guess it was her because the flip flop was right outside the door. She said she was OCD, didn't like dirty feet, dirty shoes inside the van. She was a neat freak. So my guess is she had gone in there to work on the vlog at that point or whatever, and that's where she did her work on the vlog. She had a whole, like, almost like it was her bedroom set up in there. Pillows and everything, like the way girls do. So again, I say that leads me to, that's a further point of me thinking that she didn't die until the 28th or 29th. So that's my guess. Probably gone on way too long about this, but I don't even think I'm gonna like try to edit this. I think I'm just gonna put it up there, and it is what it is. If anybody watches it, they watch it. If they don't, they don't. It's just something that's been bugging me from my civil rights standpoint of why it's important to me is that there are no exceptions to civil rights in terms of uh, it's okay to violate them just because the crime was such that it is. Um, is it a tragedy that this young girl's dead? Yeah. Is it a murder? My guess is yes. Um, it could also be an accident. Uh, just because a coroner says that, until we know the facts of why they say it's a homicide, doesn't mean they're right. Okay, they take into account other factors that have nothing to do with what the body's telling them. Like they know that the person was pulled over by the cops for a domestic situation. They know that the that the couple had had some rocky points recently. All that gets factored in, and um, it's going to depend on why they call it a homicide. Um, in terms of, you know, like she's got a bullet hole in her forehead. Well, obviously that tells you something. Uh, if she's got, uh, if she's got, let's say they found evidence of, because they've looked in the whole area, so, and there was a rocky, there's a creek there that you have to cross to get from where the van was to the to where her body was found, and that's all rocks. Like, uh, is it possible that someone slipped and fell and hit their head? Is it possible that they argued near them, someone got shoved a little too hard, and they fell and hit their head? Very possible. In fact, I would say probably likely is that she lost her footing when they were having an argument, and he did the thing pushing her away again, a little too hard this time, and over she went, and either broke her neck or crushed her skull on these rocks. And they may or may not have found, based on the amount of time that went by, um, evidence of that. Um, you know, they're entering this thing, like at least almost 2 weeks after the girl died. The chances that there's still footprints, the chances that no one else walked there, the chances that uh, uh, there was no rain to wash uh, visible blood off of rocks. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So, you know, who knows what they found? My guess is they didn't find a whole fucking hell of a lot. They found the body, and they searched the perimeter of that. Probably looked and took pictures of everything else. I don't think everything else told them a whole lot, unless something was dropped from the van in that area. Maybe something was dropped around the body somewhere. You hear all the time, some idiot dropped his fucking wallet right next to a fucking body or something. I don't think that was the case here. I think if that was the case, he'd already have had an arrest warrant for in Wyoming for his for murder. So instead, they had to drum up some half-assed, obscure uh, federal law about. I think it has to do with abandoning someone, like who's in, and leaving them in in a dire situation or something like that. And you can almost see somebody pulling out the book and blowing the dust off it, because nobody ever gets charged with that. So, and my guess is the penalty is not going to be all that severe for that anyway. Um, so unless they get him to crack and confess, or unless the autopsy tells him something, uh, it's very feasible this kid never gets charged with murder if he keeps his mouth shut. So, and it's also feasible that he didn't do it. I think, in my opinion, at this point in time, uh, I probably believe more likely than not that he caused her death. Um, I don't believe it was murder. Um, I don't know what you want to call it. I guess it's illegal. It'd be a legal term based on Wyoming law, but manslaughter maybe. Accidental actions, resulting in someone's death type of deal. Um, I just don't see that this kid did it on purpose. I think the girl was his whole life. I think that the strain on him was that that he with them fighting and her and him not getting along for days after days, even with separations. Perhaps he felt like it was slipping away. I think that goes to his mental state of mind and his ability to cope with like everyday situations. And I think that maybe he just, again, I think the likeliest thing that I can picture right now is that she came at him again and wanted to smack him again because she didn't like something else he said, and uh, he pushed her again, and he pushed her a little too hard. That's what I think. But I still think the kid deserves innocent until proven guilty. I can't prove any of that. It's all speculation. That's just what I. That's what my gut's telling me. But can't prove it. Neither can anybody else. So we'll see what the cell phone data comes out as, because eventually that'll come out. Might not come out till trial, but a lot of this stuff you're not going to find out till a trial. You'll probably find out the manner of death in terms of what killed her. But it wouldn't be unusual for cops to withhold certain aspects of the murder, of a murder to, uh, if something weird happened where only the killer would know type of thing happens all the time. Like let's say I think in some of some of the serial killer murders I've watched documentaries on. Um, I want to say I don't remember which one it was, and I don't remember whether it was a serial killer or some other just true crime thing. But I think somebody had like a knotted rope, like a clothesline or something around their neck or something like that, kind of a signature type of thing. And like if it was a serial killer, uh, it didn't. If it was a serial killer, it didn't end up being a signature deal, but uh, a particular. In fact, I don't think it was a serial killer. I think it was a regular one. And the person that ended up confessing knew, or the way they caught the person was they knew that obscure fact that they hadn't released to the press, that type of thing. So, anyway, till next time.